Would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Jen Nelson. I live in New Jersey, USA, and I am the proud mom of Chuck Aoki, number 5 on the wheelchair rugby team, and he is the co-captain this year.
How did you feel as a mother with a child with a disability who wanted to play this sport?
Sure. So Chuck actually started his athletic career swimming at the age of 6 at the Courage Kenny Center in Minneapolis. He quickly transitioned to playing basketball, wheelchair basketball. So he played wheelchair basketball through most of high school and won a couple of national championships with the Courage Kenny team. And then he was in the hospital one year during the basketball championships, and we watched the movie Motorball. And I saw it and I was like, oh my God, that is totally your sport. And he saw it and was like, oh, that's totally my sport. So his dad took him to the next practice we could get him to, and he fell in love with it. And at the first tournament I ever went to, Chuck is very small. He would be about 5 foot tall if he was standing. So he's a very slight player compared to some of the former football players, former basketball and hockey players. And this a huge giant player. They were down the court next to each other, and Chuck was about to score, and the kid turns, hits his wheel so hard the other side popped off, which was amazing. And I must admit, a lot of profanity came out of my mouth, and there were a couple of college students sitting near me, and they actually moved away. I was kind of embarrassed, but I'm like, you don't do that to my son. So it's, on the one hand, it's terrifying. On the other hand, he's had a lot of experiences in his life that have been challenging. And, I probably worry more about his health, just given the nature of his disorder. I worry more about his health than I do with wheelchair rugby, because they, as he'll say, they're in their little tanks. So they're very well protected.
I don't know, anything else you would want to share about just being a mom of a Paralympian?
Yeah. It's not something I would have expected. When Chuck was born, I knew there was something different about him by the time he was about 4 months old, but couldn't put a finger on it. And he got to be 6 months old, and still something. And finally, took him to a doctor because he was chewing on his hand. And the doctor finally, at a year and a half, said, "Oh, that's weird. That shouldn't be happening." So started the diagnostic process. And that was terrifying. And not knowing his disorder, there are 6 genotypes of the neurological disorder, and we didn't know which one he had. So it wasn't until he was 10 years old that we found out he had type 2 of the neuropathy, which is less invasive than some of the other ones. So, but through it all, he participated in school. He had teachers. We lived in Minneapolis, and I'm saying this for parents because I want them to feel comfortable letting their kids do things. His school was very close to a lake, and in Minneapolis, things are cold, things freeze. So the classes would go for science study out to the lake, in the middle of the lake, in the middle of the winter. They'd pop him on a sled, pull him out there, have him drilling holes in the ice to get water samples. And of course, they didn't tell me ahead of time. So I'm finding out later, like, what did you do? But he had a blast. He was with his peers. It was just a fabulous experience. His teachers make all the difference, and really just didn't treated him like the special person he is, but no specialer than any other kid. And so, at any rate, so he had a very wonderful education that way, and he was in public schools the whole time. And I know some parents have had bad experiences with social workers and IEPs and 504 plans and that, but if I could be bold enough to give advice, would be to persevere. Your kid's worth it. There's so much out there now that our kids can do. Chuck was in the Paralympics in 2012 in London, and the TV coverage, and I'm not exaggerating this, was 10 hours through the whole Paralympics. And he came out of that and said, this has got to change. And it's been really fun over the last 12 years to see him putting his all behind that and really becoming a face of wheelchair rugby and face of the Paralympics. Yeah, no, your kid is a fabulous child, whoever they are, whatever their strengths and limitations are. Champion them for who they are, and they will become an amazing human being. The love you give them is the love that they're going to take with them their whole life.